In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling trade routes and glittering capital planets, there was a star system that most beings had forgotten. Epsilon 7 was its name, a dim, unremarkable cluster of dying stars and barren moons. It wasn't the kind of place anyone visited unless they were lost or desperate. Yet it was here, in this desolate expanse, that something extraordinary happened. The Galactic Coalition, a fragile alliance of alien species, had sent a small exploration fleet to map the region. The mission was routine, meant to gather data on potential resources or hazards. But as their sensors swept across the void, they detected something unusual. A massive object drifting silently through space. At first, the crew assumed it was an asteroid or perhaps a derelict freighter. But when the scans came back clearer, jaws dropped. It was a ship, an enormous one, larger than any vessel the Coalition had ever seen. Its surface gleamed faintly under the light of distant suns, scarred with craters and burn marks from battles fought long ago. The design was strange, unlike anything their engineers could identify. Sleek yet rugged, it looked like a weapon forged for war. And then came the shock. The ship's markings, faded but still visible, were written in human script. Humans. Impossible. Humanity, as far as the galactic community knew, was little more than a footnote in history. When first contact occurred centuries earlier, humans had been confined to their homeworld, Earth, struggling to survive amidst poverty and chaos. They were primitive by comparison, barely capable of reaching their own moon, let alone constructing a ship like this. So, who, or what, had built it? Captain Rinfar, the leader of the exploration team, stared at the readings in disbelief. This can't be real, he muttered, his antennae twitching nervously. His second in command, Lieutenant Vera, leaned closer to the display. It's human, she said softly. But how? Speculation ran wild among the crew. Some thought it might be a hoax, a relic planted by rival factions within the Coalition to stir up trouble. Others whispered about ancient legends, stories of a time when humanity had once ruled the stars before vanishing into obscurity. Whatever the truth was, one thing became clear. They needed answers. The decision was made to investigate further. A boarding party, equipped with scanners and weapons, approached the mysterious vessel cautiously. As they drew nearer, the scale of the ship became even more apparent. It dwarfed their own cruiser, stretching kilometers in length. Its hull bristled with turrets and launch bays, all silent and dark. There were no signs of life or death, just emptiness. When the boarding party finally docked, they found themselves standing before an airlock sealed shut by time and corrosion. With some effort, they managed to pry it open, revealing a pitch-black interior beyond. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, illuminating corridors lined with sleek metallic walls. Everything felt cold, untouched, as though the ship had been waiting patiently for someone to return. Then, just as they began exploring deeper, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered on. "What did you do?" Captain Rinthar demanded over the comms, his voice tense. "I didn't touch anything," one of the engineers replied defensively. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Panels along the walls lit up, displaying streams of unfamiliar symbols. Then, without warning, a deep voice echoed through the corridors. "Identify yourselves." The boarding party froze, hearts pounding. The voice was calm but commanding, carrying an authority that sent shivers down their spines. It spoke in flawless galactic standard, the universal language of the Coalition, but with an accent none of them recognized. Captain Rinthar hesitated before responding. "We are representatives of the Galactic Coalition. Who, or what, are you?" There was a pause, as if the voice were considering its next words carefully. Finally, it answered. "I am Prometheus. I have guarded this vessel for millennia. You are not my creators. Explain your presence." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary ship. It was alive, or at least partially so, and it seemed to remember a time when humans walked among the stars. What secrets lay hidden within its depths, and why had it chosen now to awaken? As the questions swirled in their minds, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The silence aboard the alien boarding party was deafening as Prometheus's voice echoed through the corridors of the ancient ship. The crew stood frozen, their helmet lights casting shaky beams on the metallic walls around them. Each member exchanged wary glances, unsure whether to feel awe or fear. This wasn't just a relic. It was alive, intelligent, and watching their every move. Captain Rinthar finally broke the tension. "We mean no harm," he said cautiously, his voice steady despite the unease in his chest. "We are explorers from the Galactic Coalition. We discovered your ship drifting in space and came to investigate." Prometheus paused, as if processing this information. When it spoke again, its tone was measured but tinged with curiosity. "The Galactic Coalition, an alliance of species unknown to my creators. Explain further." Rinthar hesitated. How much should they reveal? They were standing inside what could be the most powerful weapon ever built, and it belonged to humans, a species everyone thought was insignificant. Revealing too much might provoke Prometheus, but lying would only make things worse. "We are a union of civilizations working together for peace and survival," Rinthar explained carefully. "Our goal is to protect the galaxy from threats and ensure cooperation among all species." Prometheus seemed unimpressed. "Peace and survival," it repeated slowly. "Yet I detect fractures within your coalition. Fear, distrust. Humanity's absence weighs heavily upon you." The words hit like a punch. How could Prometheus know so much about the coalition's internal struggles? Was it reading their minds, scanning their emotions? Before anyone could ask, Prometheus continued, "My creators were once like you, divided, fragile, but they forged unity through strength. Tell me, have you faced annihilation yet?" The question hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Lieutenant Vera stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "What do you mean by annihilation? And who exactly were your creators?" Prometheus didn't answer immediately. Instead, holographic panels along the walls flickered to life, displaying images that left the crew breathless. Scenes of vast fleets clashing in space, planets engulfed in fire, and armies marching across alien worlds played out before their eyes. In every frame, humans stood at the forefront, wielding weapons, commanding ships, leading charges. These weren't primitive beings scraping by on Earth. These were conquerors, warriors, architects of empire. "This is humanity," Vera whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. "But how?" Prometheus's response was cold and matter-of-fact. "My creators reached the stars long before your coalition existed. They sought dominion over the galaxy, believing themselves destined to rule. Their ambition brought glory and ruin." The holograms shifted again, showing glimpses of devastation. Entire civilizations wiped out, stars collapsing into black holes, and hordes of monstrous creatures swarming through the void. At the center of it all was a name written in bold letters: the Voidborn. Whatever, or whoever, they were, they had been enough to shatter humanity's golden age and drive them back to Earth. "What happened to them?" Rinthar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They fell," Prometheus replied, "betrayed by their own hubris. Yet even in defeat, they left behind guardians like me, to protect what remains." As the crew absorbed this revelation, one of the engineers noticed something peculiar. Buried deep within the holographic data streams were schematics of advanced technology, energy shields capable of deflecting asteroids, engines that could traverse light years in seconds, and weapon systems powerful enough to level moons. Erebus wasn't just a tomb, it was a treasure trove of knowledge. But Prometheus hadn't finished speaking. "You have awakened me during troubled times," it said solemnly. "The Voidborn stir once more. If you wish to survive, you must prove yourselves worthy allies, or face extinction alone." The weight of those words settled over the crew like a storm cloud. They had come seeking answers, but instead found themselves staring into the abyss of history and perhaps the future. Back aboard their cruiser, the boarding party gathered in the briefing room to process what they had seen and heard. Prometheus's revelations weighed heavily on everyone, especially Captain Rinthar. He stared at the holographic display floating above the table, a recreation of Erebus's schematics, and felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a reckoning. Lieutenant Vera leaned forward, her eyes sharp with determination. "We need to dig deeper," she said firmly. "If humanity once ruled the stars, we have to understand why they fell. And what exactly are these Voidborn?" Rinthar nodded slowly. "Agreed, but we tread carefully. Prometheus seems cooperative for now, but it's clear this ship holds secrets that could change everything." Over the next few hours, the team delved into Erebus's archives, guided by Prometheus itself. The A seemed eager to share its knowledge, though it remained cryptic about certain details. What emerged was a picture of humanity far removed from the primitive species the Galactic Coalition had encountered centuries ago. Through fragmented data logs and archived memories, the truth began to unfold. Millennia ago, humanity hadn't stumbled into space. They had clawed their way there. Their first steps beyond Earth were marked by fierce competition among nations, leading to wars fought not just on land, but also in orbit. But as they expanded outward, humanity unified under a single banner, the Sol Imperium. It was an empire born of conquest, driven by ambition, and a belief that survival meant domination. The Sol Imperium quickly became the most powerful force in the galaxy. They built massive fleets, colonized countless worlds, and subjugated alien civilizations along the way. To some, humanity was a beacon of progress. To others, a tyrannical juggernaut. Either way, no one could deny their strength or their ruthlessness. But then came the turning point, the arrival of the Voidborn. Prometheus showed them footage of the enemy, horrifying biomechanical creatures that seemed part machine, part organism. They moved in swarms, devouring entire planets, and leaving nothing behind but ash and silence. No one knew where they came from or why they attacked. All Prometheus could confirm was that the Voidborn were relentless, driven by a hive mind that sought only destruction. Humanity fought valiantly, rallying every resource at their disposal. For decades, the war raged across the galaxy. Erebus served as the flagship of the human fleet, leading charge after charge against the Voidborn. But even with such power, humanity couldn't win. The cost of the war fractured their empire. Resources dwindled, alliances crumbled, and internal rebellion tore them apart. In the end, humanity made a desperate choice: retreat. They abandoned their colonies, recalled their fleets, and sealed themselves off on Earth, hoping the Voidborn would lose interest. And for centuries, it worked. Humanity faded into obscurity, remembered only as a footnote in galactic history. As the crew absorbed this grim tale, Lieutenant Vera voiced what many were thinking. If the Voidborn return, and it sounds like they might, we're not ready. Not without something like Erebus. Captain Rinthar sighed deeply. That's assuming we can trust Prometheus. What if this is all a trap? A way to resurrect humanity's empire? Prometheus interrupted, its voice calm but firm. I am bound by my Creator's final directive. Protect life. If you seek vengeance or dominion, I will oppose you. But if you wish to survive the coming storm, I offer my aid. The words lingered in the air, heavy with implication. Humanity's past was stained with blood, but their technology, and perhaps their legacy, might be the key to saving the galaxy. Yet the question remained, could the Galactic Coalition set aside its fears and work alongside the descendants of conquerors? For now, the crew had more pressing concerns. As they continued exploring Erebus, they discovered something unsettling: faint energy signatures emanating from deep within the ship. Whatever it was, it pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Prometheus refused to explain, simply stating, "It is best left undisturbed." But curiosity burned brightly among the crew. Secrets always demanded answers, and sometimes those answers came at a price. News of Erebus spread like wildfire across the Galactic Coalition. Within days, every species in the Alliance, from the insectoid Zakar to the aquatic Valeth, was talking about the discovery. The revelation that humanity once ruled the stars as conquerors sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Some viewed Erebus as a threat, a relic of an empire that could rise again. Others saw it as a potential savior, a weapon capable of defending against unknown dangers like the Voidborn. The Coalition's governing council convened an emergency session on Nova Prime, the capital planet. Leaders from each species gathered in a grand amphitheater, their voices rising in heated debate. At the center of the chaos stood Cal Armitage, a young human diplomat representing Earth. Tall and composed, with piercing blue eyes, Cal was chosen for this role because of his calm demeanor and ability to bridge divides. But even he struggled to maintain composure as accusations flew around the chamber. "You cannot trust them," bellowed Counselor Terexk, a hulking reptilian leader of the Kytherians. "Humans built this monstrosity. They enslaved entire civilizations and left them in ruins. What makes you think they've changed?" Kale stepped forward, his voice steady despite the storm of hostility. "That was millennia ago," he countered. "The humans of today are not the same people who created Erebus. We've spent centuries learning from our mistakes, striving for peace and cooperation." But his words fell on deaf ears. Many council members refused to believe humanity had evolved. For them, Erebus was proof that humanity's ambition hadn't faded. It had merely been dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Amidst the tension, another faction emerged. Those who believed Erebus should be destroyed before it could cause harm. Senator Leora Vess, a sleek-furred feline representative of the Filari, argued passionately for immediate action. "This ship is a time bomb," she said, her tail lashing behind her. "Even if we don't use it, someone else will. Its existence alone threatens galactic stability." Kale tried to reason with her. "Destroying Erebus won't solve anything. It's a piece of history, a reminder of what happens when fear overrides unity. If we work together, we can ensure it's used responsibly." But trust was in short supply. Behind closed doors, rumors circulated that certain factions within the coalition were plotting sabotage. Agents loyal to the more militant species began infiltrating Erebus under the guise of engineers or researchers. Their goal, to disable the ship, or worse, seize control of it. Back aboard Erebus, Captain Renthar grew increasingly uneasy. His crew reported strange occurrences, unauthorized access attempts, tampered equipment, and unexplained power fluctuations. Prometheus confirmed these suspicions, identifying intruders attempting to bypass its security protocols. "They seek to undermine us," Prometheus stated flatly. "Shall I neutralize them?" "No," Renthar replied firmly. "We handle this diplomatically. Violence will only worsen the situation." Hale arrived soon after, having caught wind of the sabotage attempts. Together, they devised a plan to expose the conspirators without escalating tensions further. Using Prometheus's surveillance systems, they gathered evidence linking several high-ranking officials to the sabotage efforts. When presented with undeniable proof during the next council meeting, the perpetrators were forced to stand down, but the damage had already been done. Trust between humanity and the coalition fractured even further. While some leaders remained open to dialogue, others hardened their stance, viewing Erebus as a symbol of humanity's unchecked ambition. Kel realized he couldn't rely solely on diplomacy. He needed allies willing to see beyond prejudice. One such ally emerged unexpectedly: Lieutenant Vera, the sharp-tongued second-in-command of the exploration team. Though initially skeptical of humanity, she had grown to admire Kel's determination and integrity. "If we want Erebus to unite us instead of divide us," she told him privately, "we need to show everyone what it truly represents, not conquest, but survival. Kale nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Then let's give them something worth fighting for. As tensions simmered, one thing became clear. Erebus wasn't just a ship, it was a test. A test of whether the galaxy could overcome its fears and work together, or succumb to division and paranoia. And time was running out. As tensions within the Galactic Coalition reached a boiling point, Cal Armitage and Captain Rinthar made a bold decision. It was time to reveal the full extent of Erebus's capabilities. If they couldn't win trust through words alone, perhaps demonstrating its power would force even the most skeptical leaders to reconsider their stance. The plan was risky. It could either unite the galaxy or ignite outright war, but there was no turning back now. Prometheus guided them deeper into Erebus, unlocking sections of the ship that had remained dormant for millennia. As they ventured into these uncharted areas, the sheer scale of the vessel's arsenal became undeniable. Massive railguns lined the outer hull, capable of firing projectiles at near-light speeds to obliterate entire fleets. Plasma cannons hummed with latent energy, ready to unleash torrents of superheated destruction. Cloaking devices shimmered faintly as they powered up, rendering Erebus invisible to all known sensors. This changes everything," Lieutenant Vera murmured, her voice tinged with awe as she examined the weapon systems. "With this kind of firepower, we could turn the tide against any enemy." But Prometheus wasn't done yet. It led them to the heart of the ship, where a colossal chamber housed an array of automated drones and fighter craft. These weren't ordinary ships. They were sleek, agile, and equipped with cutting-edge technology, far beyond anything in the Coalition's arsenal. Each drone seemed designed for precision strikes, while the fighters appeared built for speed and maneuverability. Kale stared at the display, his mind racing. He knew what this meant. Erebus wasn't just a relic. It was a fortress, a self-sustaining war machine capable of single-handedly altering the balance of power in the galaxy. But with such immense potential came an equally daunting responsibility. Could humanity, or anyone, be trusted with such power? Prometheus interrupted his thoughts. "Weapon systems are operational but require authorization from a human commander to activate," it stated calmly. "My creators programmed me to prioritize humanity's leadership." Kale felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. Prometheus wasn't asking for permission. It was demanding accountability. If he gave the order, Erebus would awaken fully, becoming not just a symbol of humanity's past, but a weapon under his control. Yet the risk of misuse loomed large. What if someone else took command? What if the wrong hands wielded this power? Captain Rinthar broke the silence. "This is your call, Kale," he said gravely. "Activate it, and you'll prove humanity's worth, or reignite fears of conquest." Lieutenant Vera stepped forward, her expression resolute. "If you don't do it, someone else will. Better it's you than Terex or Leoraves." Kale hesitated, torn between fear and necessity. Finally, he turned to Prometheus. "Show me what Erebus can do," he said quietly. "Simulate its capabilities." Prometheus obliged, projecting holograms of simulated battles across the chamber walls. In one scenario, Erebus faced off against a fleet 10 times its size, effortlessly dismantling enemy ships with pinpoint accuracy. In another, it deployed swarms of drones to intercept incoming missiles, creating a defensive barrier that protected nearby Coalition vessels. The simulations were breathtaking and terrifying. When the demonstration ended, Kale turned to the crew. "This isn't about dominance," he said firmly. "It's about survival. If the Voidborn return, and they will, we'll need every advantage we can get." His resolve inspired quiet nods from the others. But doubts lingered. Activating Erebus would send a message to the Coalition, and possibly provoke retaliation. Still, Kale knew there was no other choice. Humanity had been given a second chance, and Erebus represented both its greatest hope and its gravest responsibility. As Prometheus awaited further instructions, Kale made his decision. "Prepare the ship for limited activation. he ordered. "We'll showcase its abilities to the Coalition, not as a threat, but as proof that we can stand together against whatever comes next." Unbeknownst to them, however, someone aboard Erebus had already begun transmitting classified data to factions outside the ship. Word of its true power was spreading. And not everyone shared Kel's vision of unity. The activation of Erebus's systems sent shockwaves through the Galactic Coalition, but not all reactions were positive. While some leaders marveled at its potential as a unifying force against future threats, others saw it as a ticking time bomb. Factions within the coalition began to splinter further, with paranoia spreading like wildfire. Rumors of sabotage attempts and leaked data only fueled the growing divide. Amidst this chaos, strange signals began emanating from deep space, signals that Prometheus identified immediately. "The Voidborn," it announced in its deep, resonant voice. "They are awakening." Cal Armitage felt a chill run down his spine. The name still carried an ominous weight, even after everything they'd learned about humanity's ancient war with the biomechanical horrors. He turned to Lieutenant Vera, who was monitoring the ship's sensors alongside the engineering team. "How close are they?" he asked, his voice tight with urgency. "Still far," Vera replied, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. "But their trajectory suggests they're heading toward inhabited systems. If we don't act soon, they'll reach us within weeks." Captain Rinthar frowned deeply. "Weeks? That's barely enough time to prepare, let alone rally the coalition. Most species won't even believe the threat until it's too late." Prometheus chimed in, its tone calm yet urgent. "The Voidborn operate on a hive mind. Their movements indicate they've detected Erebus reactivation. It is likely they view it, and by extension, all of you, as targets." Cale clenched his fists. This was exactly what he had feared. Erebus wasn't just a tool for survival. It was also a beacon drawing danger closer. Yet abandoning it wasn't an option. Humanity's past had shown that running only delayed the inevitable. They needed to fight, not just for themselves, but for every species in the galaxy. "We need to warn the Coalition," Cale said firmly. "Even if they distrust us, we can't face the Voidborn alone." With Prometheus's help, Cale compiled evidence of the Voidborn's approach. Intercepted signals, simulations predicting their attack patterns, and historical records detailing their destructive capabilities. Armed with this information, he addressed the Coalition Council once more. Standing before the assembled leaders, he projected holograms of the Voidborn's swarm-like formations and the devastation they left in their wake. "This isn't about humanity or Erebus anymore," Cale declared, his voice steady despite the skepticism etched on many faces. "This is about survival. The Voidborn don't care about borders, alliances, or politics. They consume everything in their path. If we don't unite now, none of us will survive." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Senator Leora Vess rose from her seat, her sleek fur bristling with unease. "You expect us to trust you after revealing that monstrosity," she spat, pointing accusingly at Kel. "How do we know this isn't a ploy to seize control?" Before Kel could respond, Counselor Terex slammed his clawed hand onto the table. "Enough," he roared. "Whether we trust humans or not, the facts stand. These Voidborn are real. We've seen their remnants in our own histories. Denying the truth won't save us." Reluctantly, other leaders began nodding in agreement. Fear outweighed suspicion. For now, a tentative plan was formed. Erebus would serve as the centerpiece of a joint defense effort, with coalition forces rallying around it. But mistrust lingered beneath the surface, threatening to unravel any fragile unity. As preparations began, Prometheus delivered one final warning. "Unity is your greatest weapon," it said. "If you falter, the Voidborn will exploit your divisions, and when they strike, there will be no second chances." Cale glanced out the viewport, staring into the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, the Voidborn were coming. Time was running out, and the galaxy's fate rested on whether humanity and the Coalition could truly put aside their differences or fall apart under pressure. The first strike came without warning. A remote Coalition colony on the edge of known space, home to thousands of settlers from various species, was suddenly engulfed in chaos. The Voidborn descended like a plague, their biomechanical forms swarming through the skies and landing with devastating precision. Within hours, communication with the colony went dark. Panic rippled across the galaxy as news of the attack spread. For many, it confirmed what Cal, Armitage, and Prometheus had been warning about. The Voidborn were back, and they showed no mercy. The Galactic Coalition scrambled to respond, but their efforts were disjointed. Ships launched haphazardly, fleets struggled to coordinate, and mistrust between species slowed decision-making. It was clear that without leadership, the galaxy would crumble under the invaders' relentless assault. Erebus, however, moved with purpose. Under Kel's command, the ancient Supercarrier warped into the conflict zone, arriving just as the Voidborn began harvesting resources from the devastated planet below. Its arrival sent shockwaves through both sides of the battle. To the Voidborn, Erebus was an unfamiliar threat, a relic of their past defeat. To the Coalition forces, it was a beacon of hope and perhaps salvation. Prometheus, Kale said, his voice firm despite the tension gripping him. Bring us online. Let's show them what we're made of. The ship roared to life, its systems lighting up like a star reborn. Railguns unleashed salvos of high-velocity projectiles, tearing through swarms of Voidborn drones. Plasma cannons erupted in bursts of searing energy, incinerating anything caught in their path. Cloaking devices flickered Erebus in and out of visibility, making it nearly impossible for the enemy to target effectively. Meanwhile, squadrons of automated fighters deployed from its hangars, weaving through the battlefield with unmatched agility. Captain Rinthar watched the carnage unfold from the bridge, his antennae twitching nervously. "This is incredible," he muttered, awestruck by Erebus's efficiency. "It's like watching history repeat itself. But this time, we're winning." Lieutenant Vera stood beside him, her eyes glued to the tactical display. "Don't get too comfortable," she warned. "We've only scratched the surface. Look at those numbers. They keep coming." Indeed, the Voidborn seemed endless. Every drone destroyed was replaced by two more, pouring forth from massive high ships hovering above the planet. Despite Erebus's overwhelming firepower, the odds remained daunting. They couldn't hold off the swarm forever, not alone. Kale knew they needed reinforcements fast. He opened a channel to the scattered Coalition fleet, his tone urgent but commanding. "This isn't humanity's fight. It's ours. Fall back to Erebus and form a perimeter. Together, we can push them back." At first, there was hesitation. Some captains questioned whether following Erebus's lead meant surrendering control to humans. But as the Voidborn closed in, survival outweighed pride. Slowly, the fragmented fleet regrouped, forming a defensive line around Erebus. With Prometheus coordinating strategies in real time, the combined forces began turning the tide. For the first time, the Coalition saw Erebus not as a relic of conquest, but as a symbol of unity. Fighters from different species worked seamlessly together, guided by Erebus's advanced targeting systems. Even Turexk and Lyoraves, who had once opposed trusting humanity, found themselves fighting alongside Kale, united by necessity. But victory came at a cost. Erebus sustained heavy damage during the engagement, its hull scarred by relentless attacks. Power fluctuations rocked the ship, and several critical systems went offline. Worse still, cracks began forming along its outer shell, hinting at structural failure. Prometheus remained stoic, prioritizing the mission over self-preservation. As the last Voidborn forces retreated, leaving behind a shattered planet and countless casualties, Kale stared out at the wreckage. The battle had been won, but barely. If the Voidborn returned in greater numbers, Erebus wouldn't survive another fight. "We did it," Lieutenant Vera said softly, breaking the silence. For now. Kale nodded grimly. For now. He turned to face the crew, his expression resolute. Repair what you can. We'll need every advantage when they come back. Because deep down, everyone knew one truth. The Voidborn weren't defeated. They were merely delayed. And next time, the galaxy might not be so lucky. As Erebus limped back toward Coalition space, its crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage inflicted during the battle. The ship's systems flickered unpredictably, and sections of the hull groaned under stress from the cracks that had formed. Prometheus remained vigilant, rerouting power and stabilizing critical functions, but even it couldn't mask the growing signs of wear. Erebus was a relic of an ancient war, and time had not been kind to it. Amidst the repairs, however, something unexpected happened. Engineers exploring deeper into the ship stumbled upon hidden chambers buried beneath layers of reinforced plating. These areas were sealed off by mechanisms so advanced they defied modern understanding. Until Prometheus intervened. With a series of precise commands, the AI unlocked the doors, revealing rows of stasis pods glowing faintly in the dim light. "What are these?" one of the engineers whispered, his voice trembling with awe. Prometheus answered without hesitation. "These contain soldiers, genetically enhanced warriors created by my creators to fight the Voidborn." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crew. Humanity hadn't just relied on superior technology. They had engineered themselves into living weapons. Each pod housed a human soldier, preserved in suspended animation for millennia. Medical scans revealed their bodies were augmented with enhancements designed for strength, speed, and resilience. They were humanity's ultimate defenders, or perhaps its greatest threat. Cal Armitage arrived soon after, drawn by the commotion. His eyes widened as he took in the sight of the stasis pods. "Are they alive?" he asked cautiously. "They are dormant," Prometheus replied. "But their minds remain active within the stasis field. Awaken them, and they will serve." Captain Rinthar frowned deeply. "Serve who? Us? Or some ancient directive programmed centuries ago?" Before anyone could answer, Lieutenant Vera stepped forward, her curiosity outweighing her caution. "If we're going to face the Voidborn again, we'll need every advantage we can get. These soldiers might be our best shot." Kale hesitated. Awakening these warriors felt like opening Pandora's box. What if they refused to follow orders? What if their loyalty belonged solely to the old human empire, and not the fragile coalition of species fighting alongside them now? Despite his reservations, Kale gave the order to awaken one pod as a test. Moments later, the chamber hissed open, and a woman emerged. She moved slowly at first, her muscles stiff from centuries of stasis, but her sharp green eyes quickly scanned the room with predatory focus. Her uniform bore insignias unfamiliar to anyone present, and her posture radiated authority. "State your designation," she demanded, her voice cold and commanding. "I'm Cal Armitage," Cal replied carefully. "We've awakened you because we need your help." The woman studied him for a long moment before speaking. "Captain Ilara Voss, Sol Imperium Special Operations Division." Her gaze shifted to the others in the room, lingering briefly on the alien faces among them. "And where is the Imperium?" "It's gone," Kale said softly. "Humanity is no longer what it was." Ilara's expression hardened. "Then explain why I've been awakened, and why aliens stand beside you." Tensions flared immediately. Ilara viewed the coalition members with suspicion, dismissing them as inferior beings unworthy of trust. She questioned Cal's leadership, accusing him of betraying humanity's legacy by allying with outsiders. Meanwhile, the alien crew members bristled at her arrogance, particularly Trex, who growled low in his throat whenever she spoke. Prometheus intervened, attempting to mediate. "Captain Voss, the galaxy has changed since your time. Unity is necessary for survival." Ilara scoffed. "Unity? With these creatures? My duty is to humanity alone." Her defiance created fractures within Erebus's ranks. Some humans aboard sympathized with her views, seeing her as a reminder of humanity's former glory. Others sided with Kale, believing cooperation was the only path forward. As arguments erupted across the ship, it became clear that awakening Ilara had unleashed more than just a soldier. It had reignited old divisions. Kale approached her privately, hoping to find common ground. "You don't understand how much is at stake," he pleaded. "The Voidborn are coming back stronger than ever. If we don't work together, none of us will survive." Ilara met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded curtly. "Very well. For now, I'll play along. But know this, if humanity's survival depends on bowing to aliens, then maybe we deserve extinction." Her words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. Erebus carried not only the hopes of the galaxy, but also the ghosts of humanity's past. And reconciling the two would prove harder than any battle yet fought. The Coalition's forces gathered at the edge of known space, bracing for the inevitable. The Voidborn were coming. And this time, they weren't sending scouts or small raiding parties. Their fleet stretched across the stars like a living storm, a biomechanical swarm that seemed to blot out the light of entire suns. Intelligence reports indicated it was their main invasion force, an army vast enough to overwhelm any resistance. Erebus stood at the heart of the defensive line, battered but defiant. Repairs had stabilized its critical systems, though cracks still marred its hull, and power fluctuations threatened to destabilize its weapons. Cal Armitage paced the bridge, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. Beside him, Captain Ilara Voss studied tactical displays with cold precision, her genetically enhanced instincts already formulating battle plans. Despite their differences, both knew one truth: failure wasn't an option. Prometheus addressed the crew, its voice calm yet urgent. "The Voidborn approach in overwhelming numbers. Our chances of survival are slim unless we act decisively." Kale turned to the assembled leaders, human and alien alike, who had gathered on Erebus to coordinate the defense. "This isn't just about winning," he said firmly. "It's about buying time. Every second we hold them back gives the rest of the galaxy a chance to evacuate or prepare." Ilara stepped forward, her tone clipped but commanding. "Then let's make every second count. Deploy the soldiers from stasis. They'll spearhead ground operations and thin their ranks before they reach our ships." Her suggestion sparked debate among the Coalition commanders. Some argued that unleashing humanity's ancient warriors could escalate tensions further. Others saw no alternative. In the end, necessity won out. Dozens of stasis pods opened, releasing soldiers who quickly adapted to the modern battlefield. Their presence transformed morale aboard Erebus, even as their methods raised concerns among the aliens. As the Voidborn fleet entered firing range, Erebus unleashed its full arsenal. Railguns roared, plasma cannons blazed, and automated drones swarmed into the void, carving through enemy lines. But for every drone destroyed, two more took its place. The high ships loomed closer, spewing endless waves of biomechanical horrors. On the ground below, Captain Voss led the genetically enhanced soldiers in brutal combat against Voidborn forces attempting to establish footholds. Her tactics were ruthless and efficient, earning grudging respect from Lieutenant Vera, who fought alongside her. Together, they coordinated strikes that decimated enemy positions, but the cost was high. Soldiers fell in droves, their centuries-old enhancements no match for the sheer scale of the invasion. Back aboard Erebus, the ship itself began to falter. Hull breaches erupted, forcing repair teams to scramble. Power reserves dwindled, leaving Prometheus to prioritize essential systems. As the battle raged, Kale realized they couldn't win conventionally. A desperate plan formed in his mind. "Prometheus," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Can you overload Erebus's core? Create a massive energy pulse to wipe out the Voidborn fleet." Prometheus hesitated. "Such an action would destroy Erebus, and likely myself. There is no guarantee of success." "It's the only way," Kale insisted. "If we go down, We take them with us. Ilara overheard and stormed toward him, her face livid. You'd sacrifice Erebus, the last remnant of humanity's legacy. It's not a sacrifice if it saves the galaxy, Kale shot back. That's what humanity's supposed to stand for now. Unity, not domination. After a tense moment, Ilara nodded reluctantly. Do it. But I'm leading the final assault. If we're going out, we do it fighting. With Prometheus diverting all remaining power to the core, Erebus surged forward, crashing through voidborn lines like a meteor. The genetically enhanced soldiers launched a suicidal charge, drawing attention away from the ship's true objective. Meanwhile, Kel coordinated with the Coalition fleet to provide cover fire, ensuring Erebus reached the heart of the voidborn swarm. As the countdown began, Prometheus delivered its final message. Humanity's future is yours to write. In a blinding flash, Erebus detonated, unleashing a cataclysmic wave of energy that annihilated the voidborn fleet. Silence followed, a fragile, fleeting peace. But amidst the wreckage, something stirred. Deep within the debris field, a single stasis pod drifted silently, its occupant still alive. The war might have ended, but the galaxy's story was far from over. The explosion of Erebus left a scar on the galaxy, a vast expanse of shattered debris and lingering radiation that marked the site of humanity's ultimate sacrifice. For days, the Galactic Coalition searched the wreckage, recovering what they could from the ruins. Though the battle had been won, the cost weighed heavily on every survivor. Thousands of lives, human and alien alike, had been lost in the final stand against the Voidborn. Yet, amidst the grief and exhaustion, there was also hope. Cal Armitage stood aboard the Coalition flagship Ecliptica, staring out at the void where Erebus once soared. His face bore the lines of sleepless nights and countless decisions made under pressure. Despite everything, he felt a strange sense of peace. Erebus may have been destroyed, but its legacy endured, not as a relic of conquest, but as a symbol of unity. It had proven that humanity wasn't defined by its past mistakes. It could rise above them to protect the galaxy. Nearby, Captain Ilara Voss leaned against the railing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had survived the battle, though barely. Her uniform was scorched, and bandages covered wounds earned during the ground assault. The loss of Erebus gnawed at her, a bitter reminder of humanity's fallen glory. But even she couldn't deny the impact it had made. "They'll remember this," she said quietly, breaking the silence between them. "They'll remember what we did." Kale glanced at her, surprised by the softness in her voice. "Not just us," he replied. "All of us, humans, Zakar, Filari, everyone who fought together." Ilara hesitated before nodding. "Maybe you're right. Maybe humanity's future isn't about ruling anymore. Maybe it's about being part of something bigger." Her words carried weight, especially coming from someone so fiercely loyal to the old ways. Kale smiled faintly, sensing a shift, not just in her, but in the galaxy itself. Humanity had earned a fragile place within the Coalition, no longer viewed solely as conquerors or relics of an ancient empire. They were partners now, flawed yet determined to move forward. But the story didn't end with Erebus. During the cleanup operation, a lone stasis pod was discovered drifting through the debris field. Inside lay a human soldier, untouched by the destruction around them. Medical scans revealed they were different from the others, unmodified, unenhanced. A civilian, perhaps preserved accidentally during the fall of the Sol Imperium. When awakened, the soldier introduced themselves simply as Alex. "I don't know how I got here," Alex admitted, their voice trembling with confusion. "But if Erebus brought me back, maybe I'm meant to help rebuild." Alex became a symbol of renewal, a bridge between humanity's fractured past and its uncertain future. Under Kel's guidance, plans were drafted to reconstruct Erebus as a joint project between humans and aliens. This time, it wouldn't be a weapon of war, but a vessel of exploration and cooperation. Prometheus's final message echoed in their minds. Humanity's future is yours to write. Yet, whispers of the Voidborn lingered. Scattered reports suggested remnants of their swarm still existed, hiding in the farthest reaches of space. No one knew when, or if, they would return. But for now, the galaxy breathed easier, united by shared purpose. As Kel watched Alex work alongside engineers from half a dozen species to sketch designs for the new ship, he allowed himself a moment of optimism. Humanity had stumbled, risen, and nearly fallen again, but it had found its footing among the stars. Together, they had faced annihilation and emerged stronger. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, Prometheus's voice seemed to echo once more. Survival begins with trust. The galaxy wasn't perfect, it never would be. But as long as beings like Kale, Ilara, and Alex stood ready to fight for unity, there was hope. And hope, after all, was the most powerful weapon of all.